If Elon Musk didn't learn how to explain impossible ideas, would Tesla or SpaceX still exist? All of that matters, but that's not the whole story. A car or a rocket is only the visible result. Long before that, a founder has to make an unfamiliar future feel concrete enough for other people to join. But underneath all those labels is a simpler skill. He learned how to turn huge, confusing, almost ridiculous ideas into stories that other people could understand. In his framing, electric cars belong to a larger energy shift, and rockets connected to the survival of civilization. But there is one reason this story is worth telling carefully. Musk's communication did not work simply because it sounded impressive. It worked when it made a difficult future easy enough for other people to repeat. Tesla had a sequence. SpaceX had a mission. Even the SEC case matters for the same reason. It shows how seriously the world had learned to take his words. So, this is not a video about whether Elon Musk is a genius. To answer that, we are going to follow 3 tests. The first test is Tesla. In 2006, Musk published a short document called The Secret Tesla Motors Master Plan. It did something unusual. Instead of describing electric cars as a dream, it broke the dream into a 4-step sequence. Build a sports car, use that money to build a more affordable car, use that money to build an even more affordable car. And when doing that, also provide zero-emission electric power generation options. The second test is SpaceX. In 2008, after the first 3 Falcon 1 launches failed, the 4th flight successfully reached orbit on September 28, 2008. The third test is the 2018 SEC case. By 2018, Musk's words were not being ignored. They were moving markets, drawing regulators, and proving that the future he described had become important enough for every sentence to matter. So we start in the years before Tesla and SpaceX made him famous, when Musk was still learning how to make sense of people. Elon Musk was born in Pretoria, South Africa in 1971. That fact is usually where biographies begin, but for this story, the more important question is not where he was born, it is how he learned to make sense of a world that did not always make sense to him. Many accounts of Musk's early life described a childhood shaped by books, computers, and isolation. As a child, Musk was bullied and turned heavily toward reading. He later said books helped him learn that people did not always say what they meant. But those early details do tell us something about the way Musk learned. He seems to have treated the world less like a social environment and more like a system to decode. Books gave him models. Physics gave him rules. Computers gave him a place where feedback was fast and problems could be debugged. That is why one of the most famous early Musk stories matters. At age 12, he created and sold a video game called Blastar. A video game is a tiny world built from rules. You write instructions, the machine follows them, and the player decides almost immediately whether the world makes sense. Later, Musk kept doing a larger version of that. He took ideas that sounded too big to process: electric transportation, reusable rockets, solar energy, artificial intelligence, tunnels, brain-computer interfaces. This does not mean the mission was always realistic or the deadline was always met. In fact, one of the biggest criticisms of Musk is that his timelines often turn out to be far more aggressive than reality allows. But even that criticism proves the point. People were listening closely enough to notice the difference between what he said and what happened. That is not normal. Most people can make bold predictions and nobody cares. When Musk made them, entire industries reacted, along with investors, journalists, customers, fans, critics, and regulators. The ability to create that kind of reaction did not appear out of nowhere in the Tesla years. It developed through practice. And his first serious practice arena was not a rocket factory. It was the internet boom. In the mid-1990s, the internet was not the normal background of everyday life that it is now. It was new, exciting, confusing, and for many businesses, not obviously useful. That is the environment Musk entered when he co-founded Zip2 in 1995. Zip2 provided online city guides to newspapers, and in 1999, Compaq bought the company for about $307 million. Today, an online city guide sounds almost boring. Maps, listings, local information, and digital news tools all feel normal now. But in the 1990s, that, of course, did not exist yet. At the time, though, the business case still had to be explained. Newspapers needed a reason to care about the web, and local information had to be presented as something that would soon become searchable, useful, and commercially urgent. That was one of Musk's first lessons in selling the future. A correct idea is not enough if the customer does not yet feel the problem. A few years later, he entered an even stranger category: online finance. Musk founded X.com, an online financial services company which later became part of what we know as PayPal. In 2002, eBay bought PayPal for $1.5 billion. Again, the concept sounds obvious today. Online payments are everywhere, and people now move money through apps without thinking about it. But at the time, asking people to trust money to an internet was not a small communication problem. It was a psychological problem. You were not just saying, here is a product. You were saying, trust an invisible network with something that used to require banks, paper, signatures, and physical presence. That is a much harder sell. And this is where Musk's communication style begins to make more sense. He was not only selling features, he was selling a shift in what people considered normal. Zip2 asked businesses to imagine local information moving online. X.com and PayPal asked people to trust online money. Tesla asked drivers to see electric cars as desirable rather than compromised. SpaceX asked governments, engineers, and the public to treat private rockets as a serious force in space. Musk's communication is not usually soft persuasion. It often has a deadline inside it. For a founder trying to move people before the evidence is complete, urgency is part of the product. By the time Musk left PayPal with a large payout, he had already learned something many technical founders never learn. The market does not automatically reward the best idea. It rewards the idea that enough people can understand, trust, and repeat. And then he moved into a field where that lesson would be tested much more brutally. Because selling software is hard. Selling an electric car company in the early 2000s was something else entirely. When Musk became involved with Tesla, the idea of a desirable electric car was still fighting against a very old image. Real cars used gasoline. Electric cars were weak. Range was limited, charging was inconvenient, batteries were expensive, and demand was uncertain. You cannot beat that story with one press release. You need a better story. In 2006, Musk published the secret Tesla Motors master plan. It said, build a sports car, use that money to build an affordable car, use that money to build an even more affordable car. And while doing all of that, provide zero-emission electric power generation options. That is the whole magic of the document. It took a massive industrial transformation and made it feel like a sequence. The argument did not depend on vague optimism or a demand for trust. It worked because it gave people a chain. Start expensive, use that to fund a less expensive car, use that to fund something even more accessible, and build the energy system around it. When you hear it that way, the future becomes easier to picture. But that is exactly why the communication mattered. A normal company can wait for proof. A company trying to create a new category often has to gather belief before proof is complete. That is why Musk's role as a communicator cannot be separated from Tesla's rise. This does not mean words built the cars. The reality was built by engineers, factory workers, designers, supply chain teams, battery experts, software teams, sales teams, and many others. But before reality became obvious, language held the shape of it. And the sharper the language was, the easier it became for people to repeat it. This is one of Musk's strongest patterns. He makes a technical future repeatable, and it leads to a lesson that is useful even if you never plan to run a car company. In the real world, good ideas do not travel very far if you cannot explain them clearly. Tesla showed how Musk could turn an electric car company into a plan, but SpaceX would test whether he could do something even harder. Could he make people believe in a rocket company after the rockets kept exploding? AI is great, but don't you miss that real human connection when you're trying to learn something new? That's why you need Amazing Talker. It's a one-on-one online tutoring platform where you can learn anything, whether it's English, a new language, music, or history. We have it all. Our tutors are from all around the world, and many of them speak your native language too. More than 4 million students have joined us already. If you want a warmer, more authentic way to learn, just click the link in the description or the pinned comment below. Register now and get $10 off your first lesson. SpaceX is where Musk's communication style becomes almost impossible to separate from the company's survival story. Rockets are expensive, failure-prone, and historically tied to governments, militaries, and decades of institutional knowledge. For a private company founded in 2002 to say it could reduce the cost of space access was not just ambitious. To many people, it sounded almost absurd. And that is before you get to Musk's larger frame. Humanity should become a multi-planet species. That phrase is classic Musk. It is enormous, but easy to repeat. It turns a business problem into a civilization problem. SpaceX's early Falcon 1 launches failed 3 times. Then, on September 28, 2008, Falcon number 1, Flight 4, reached orbit. It became the first privately developed liquid-fueled rocket to reach Earth orbit. That success did not make every future SpaceX problem disappear, but it changed the story. Before that flight, SpaceX could be dismissed as another overconfident private space dream. After that flight, there's proof that the dream could touch reality. By 2018, Musk was not an obscure founder trying to make people care about electric cars or private rockets. He was one of the most watched business figures in the world. That changed the meaning of his words. A random person's ambitious post can disappear into the internet. A CEO's statement about a possible corporate transaction is different. Investors may act, markets may move. On August 7th, 2018, Musk tweeted that he was considering taking Tesla private at $420 per share, and that funding was secured. The SEC later charged him, alleging that the tweets were false and misleading because he had not discussed specific deal terms with any potential financing partners and knew the transaction was uncertain. Musk and Tesla settled with the SEC. The settlement included financial penalties and governance changes, including Musk stepping down as Tesla chairman. This is not just a legal footnote. It is the moment where the central skill of this video becomes complicated. For years, Musk had trained the public to treat his statements as glimpses of a future that might become real. His timelines, goals, and missions became part of the company's identities. But public markets operate under a different rule. A dream can be inspiring and a mission can be motivating, but a tweet about a possible corporate transaction can become evidence. That is the line the SEC case exposed. And whether you admire Musk or criticize him, that line matters. Because the more influential a communicator becomes, the less they can pretend their words are casual. This is one of the hardest things about Musk's public role. Part of his appeal is that he often sounds direct, informal, and unfiltered. He does not always communicate like a polished corporate executive reading from a safe legal script. For supporters, that makes him feel authentic. For critics, it makes him seem reckless. He collapses the distance between founder, brand, media channel, and market signal. When that works, it is incredibly efficient. He can speak directly to millions of people without waiting for a press conference or a traditional ad campaign, and almost anything he says can spread instantly. It would be easy to end the video by saying, Musk succeeded because he communicated the future better than everyone else, but that would leave out the other half. That is why the Musk story is useful, not because he is a perfect model to copy, but because his career shows communication at extreme scale. Most of us will never move markets with a sentence, but we do face a smaller version of the same problem every day. The hard part is not just speaking boldly. The hard part is making your words strong enough to move people and accurately enough to survive reality. Tesla's master plan made a difficult strategy legible. SpaceX attached engineering risk to a larger human story, then backed part of that story with evidence. The SEC case showed what happens when language becomes powerful enough to be regulated, scrutinized, and potentially dangerous. So, if we return to the opening question, would Tesla or SpaceX exist if Musk had not learned how to explain impossible ideas? That is Musk's real communication lesson. He does not only describe a product, he describes a world that product belongs to. Musk learned that the future does not persuade people just by being technically possible. It has to be explainable, memorable, and repeatable by people who did not invent it. Language can turn complexity into direction, keep beliefs alive until evidence arrives, and create consequences when confidence outruns verification. That is the useful version of this story for the rest of us. You do not need to start a rocket company to understand the pattern. Job interviews, product pitches, new businesses, leadership, and creative work all involve the same challenge at a smaller scale. Can you make the idea clear enough that another person can carry it with you? That is what great communication does. It does not just sound impressive in the moment. It lets the idea survive after you stop talking. If an idea matters to you, it deserves to be understood. And sometimes the difference between being ignored and being taken seriously is not whether you are smart enough, it's whether you can make another person see what you mean. Do you think Musk's greatest strength is his engineering ambition, his tolerance for risk, or his ability to make other people believe in a future before the evidence is obvious? Tell me in the comments.